On the third weekend of October 2011, the New York Giants held off the Buffalo Bills to win their Week 6 matchup 27-24. Both the ALCS and NLCS reached their conclusion, with the Texas Rangers and St. Louis Cardinals taking convincing wins. And in NASCAR's fifth race of the chase, five-time and defending series champion Jimmy Johnson crashed out of 7th place with just 18 laps to go, dropping him from a close third to a distant 8th in the standings. I couldn't possibly have known all three of these championships would be decided in the most dramatic ways possible, each an instant classic. All I knew was on this same weekend, still another series was eagerly awaiting its own Game 7 moment, the IZOD IndyCar World Championship. I feel that every sports journalist, myself included, started out as a fan who wanted to get closer to the action. Few will admit this. The two sides are always in conflict. To be a journalist, your persona as a fan must be restrained, concealed, or eliminated altogether. Professionalism dictates that you encounter the sport differently when you're on assignment. What you wear, what you do, what you say. Traditionally, you would learn all this in journalism school, and then in the workforce serve under an editor who'd keep you on the straight and narrow. But the internet opened a new path, one that was much harder to navigate because you had to go it alone. You could be a fan with a website or a social media account and build an audience of your own. What you chose to do with that exposure was up to you. Either stay a fan or make the jump to media. In the fall of 2011, I thought I'd found a way to have my cake and eat it too. NASCAR was in its third full season, but was still finding its footing. The articles were short and served to do little more than update the last place statistics. It was a curiosity, a hobby. It had to be. At the time, I was taking the California bar exam. Mark Aumann asked me about this when he interviewed me for NASCAR.com, and I felt like I was still figuring out the answer. Aumann's article caught the attention of a NASCAR message board, which became one of the first sites to share my links. The concept of following last-place finishers matched the tongue-in-cheek humor of the board, and I became a regular contributor. The group had a chat room, where on race days I contribute a mix of last-place statistics and purposefully awful fan fiction. Among these were legends of fictional race car driver Dan Wheldon, who newer and less informed fans often confused with Danica Patrick. While NASCAR remained my focus, this group got me into IndyCar, which I started to watch week to week for the first time. Before the 2010s, I only watched the Indy 500, and passively at that. Other than the Hornish-Andretti photo finish in 2006, I tuned out much of the dominance of Penske and Ganassi. That effectively changed on May 29, 2011, when I was again in the chat room.
This time by, the white flag is in hand. 2.5 miles.
Come on, baby, bring it home.
Keep going. The 23-year-old from Sausalito, California. Listen to the crowd cheer him on.
And how fitting for the National Guard car to win if he can indeed do that. Has he got enough fuel to make it to the end?
Half a lap. He's got half a lap to go, and he's the Indy 500 champion.
Panther Racing, oh so good. They finished second here, twice here. They come again through the final two corners. J.R. Hildebrand.
Careful of traffic.
He's got to get around the lap. Traffic. 100 years ago. He hit the wall. Just like Thomas Schechter.
Keep your foot on the gas.
Dan Wheldon is going to win the race.
Yeah, Dan!
That is unbelievable. Oh, my goodness.
Weldon, after finishing second the last 2 years, wins when J.R. Hildebrand hits the wall coming out of 4.
At the time, I knew of Dan Wheldon, but I hadn't followed his career all that closely. I remembered his previous 500 win in 2005, a story overshadowed by the booth focusing on Danica Patrick. I'd also watched him race as a fan, where the IndyCar series came out to Sears Point. There in 2010, I witnessed his only last-place finish in his 134 career IndyCar starts.
show the strength of that roll hoop.
Yeah.
And it looked like Baguette was the car that was behind him. And that's what I say, it was just the right front. It was just a simple little clip. There's the clip.
Yep.
And it sends you over.
Wheldon's win in the 2011 Indy 500 was a breath of fresh air, following back-to-back championships by Dario Franchitti. During this time, I'd endeared myself to Will Power, simply because he was trying to unseat Franchitti as champion. Power's famous double bird at New Hampshire inspired me to make this sign, to wave as a fan in the stands at Sears Point in August, which scored me a swag bag from the Verizon tent, and a thumbs up from Power in Victory Lane. The New Hampshire incident also caused Will Power's t-shirts to fly off the shelves. The only one I could find at the track was in a 3XL. I bought it nevertheless, and I was wearing it on Sunday, October 16th. I brought my sign from Sonoma into the living room, turned on the TV, then logged onto the chat.
500 winner Eddie Cheever and Scott Goodyear. Guys, this is the 6th year in a row this championship's coming down to the final race.
And it's incredible. When you think about it, both these teams should have won probably a couple of races ago, but mistakes both by the driver on the track and the crew in the pit lane have come down to this one last race. And Eddie, with 34 cars, you know, as a driver, when you get into a car, you want to be programmed. I don't think there's any programming going on here because we don't know what's going to happen.
And what an incredible grid we have. We have Tony Kanaan on pole. We have Dario Franchitti, Will Power right in the middle of the grid trying to win a championship. And we have Dan Wheldon trying to get $5 million from the last place on the grid.
Well, and let's get caught up with the drivers that are contending for that championship. And Jamie Little is with the first.
All right, we're back here in the Penske Hauler, just getting ready to suit up for a big day for Will Power. And once again, all eyes are on you as you look for your first championship against Dario Franchitti once again. So, Will, you're trailing him. What would you say were the moments this year that got you in this point situation?
Well, all 6 wins most definitely helped. You know, we've had some bad days. I think that's what's put us in a situation where we're not leading, is the bad results have been so bad with DNFs and so on. But, you know, we clawed back from a 64-point deficit to get to this point. So, you know, we've worked hard. It's been a great season, no matter what the outcome is. And, you know, I think that we've put a lot into this race, a lot into the last 2 races. Obviously, Kentucky was not the result we wanted, but that's racing.
Once again, the championship had come down to Franchitti and Power. And once again, Power was trailing, this time by 18 points. Both had qualified in the middle of the 34-car pack, which was the biggest field the series had seen in years.
Opportunity, a rare opportunity behind the scenes with Dario Franchitti going for his 3rd straight IndyCar Series championship, 4th overall. Do you get nervous before a race? I mean, championship race or any race?
I think any race, there's still those little butterflies, which is part of the thrill, really. You know, you want to do well. And especially today, there's a lot of unknowns. First time here at Vegas, we're not sure how the race is going to play out. Starting a little bit further back, so you know, probably no more than usual nerves. But yeah, there's a lot of unknowns today.
Dan Wheldon was in the race too. He'd roll off in last place as part of a $5 million promotion devised by IndyCar CEO Randy Bernard. The money was originally intended as a bounty for drivers outside the IndyCar series to match their skills against the field. But when none picked up the offer, Wheldon, out of a ride after Indy, accepted the challenge on September 11th. If he won after starting last, Wheldon would split the money with a fan. Even with all this riding on his number 77, Wheldon was still overshadowed by Danica Patrick, who that day would run her last scheduled open-wheel race before her move to NASCAR.
You know, honestly, I always put a lot of pressure on myself anyway, and there's a lot of history and tradition to win the Indianapolis 500. This is slightly different. It's a unique opportunity that Randy Bernard, the IndyCar Series, GoDaddy, and Verizon have given me, and you know, we've had a tough weekend so far, but you know, I think the Bowers and Wilkins at Magnolia, William Rast, Curb, and Big Machine Records car will, you know, definitely come to the front. We've, like I say, they've worked tirelessly yesterday to literally change everything. So there's not the problem of having slow car syndrome. And, you know, I've been excited by this event just with the build-up, but I can't wait for the race. And in answer to your question, I think there's pressure all the time, especially when you want to win as bad as I do.
In the book Lionheart, Remembering Dan Wheldon, Sam Schmidt recalled the events leading up to the race. We actually had a bad weekend leading up to the race, but Dan never got down or frustrated. We took the same chassis we used to win the pole at Indy to Las Vegas. We meticulously labeled every part, and that's how Dan's car was built up. He wasn't fast at all in practice. In fact, he was way back in the pack. We were pulling our hair out all weekend. Dan was flat out but couldn't go any faster. We changed a bunch of stuff leading up to qualifying, but we still qualified 29th out of 34 cars. With Dan's constant encouragement, we decided the night before the race to just tear it down and take everything back to the tub. We didn't know what we'd done wrong, but the guys stayed at the track for the better part of the night and took the car entirely apart and put it back together again. It was all hands on deck. We had to start last for the promotion, last to first to win a $5 million bonus. So we thought, if this car wakes up like it did at Indy and becomes a rocket, then by all means go to the front. But I told Dan that if it was anything like it was in practice, don't risk anything. Just hang at the back and have a good day.
At the look on his face, he knows what he has to do. Can he get the job done? He has not had as much success on the ovals as he has had on the road courses. And Dario Franchitti will start right alongside of him in row number 9. His main task is just keep Will Power in sight. If he does that, he wins his 3rd straight championship and 4th of his career. Scott?
Well, the simple thing for both these drivers we know is win, but don't forget, many more starts for Dario Franchitti. 126 oval starts, only 28 for Will Power.
I think today's going to come about who you have around you. You have to have a dancing partner. You have to be able to draft with somebody. And if it happens to be your teammate, it's an added advantage.
This is going to be pack racing at 220 plus miles an hour. You can see everybody down trackside getting ready for the opening ceremonies under this beautiful, crystal clear day. Temperature broaching 90 degrees here in October. That's a little warm, and it's going to get real hot in the cockpit, and it's going to get even hotter out on the track.
Spirits were high coming into the race. In the chat room, I distinctly remember making this Independence Day reference during the command to start engines.
Motor Speedway race fans, are you ready? It's time for those most famous words in motorsports, a custom that originated in the greatest spectacle in racing, the Indianapolis 500. Here for today's IZOD IndyCar Series World Championships presented by Honda, our honorary Grand Marshal, skateboarding legend Tony Hawk, to give the command.
Drivers, start your engines.
The command has been given. Pitsex, when you're ready, let me know, please. Plane control, World 1, World Championship hot. 2 hot. 3, 1 hot, 1 hot. 4 hot. 5 hot.
So you can hear the command from each row as the officials let each person know in the field that the car in their row has started. Let's get a quick update on this pressure that the 2 owners are facing. Vince is caught up with Chip Ganassi.
With Chip just before. Chip, what was the message you gave to your team today before coming out for this championship battle?
Well, to the team you say one thing, and to Dario, he knows what to do. But, you know, to the team, it's the keystone in our season. We're going to put the keystone in right here today.
Thanks, Chip.
The next 4 minutes and 20 seconds featured the most exciting IndyCar racing I'd ever witnessed. Sam Schmidt would later recall of Wheldon, quote, "He came on the radio hooting and yelling. 'This thing is fantastic,' he said. 'I don't know what you did to it, but the speed is back. I can go anywhere and do anything. I can drive around any of these guys.' He was in his element and having a blast."
Pace cars already dropped down, and here they come down the front straightaway, and the final race for the championship is green. But we're already seeing 3 wide coming out of 2. There's Dario Franchitti in the number 10. Will Power right alongside. They're going to try and feel themselves out a little bit, I think, guys. They didn't want to get in any early trouble.
Spoke to both those guys. They know they have to be there at the end. And Eddie, as we know, when you start a race, you might have a plan. You take the green flag and you put your foot on the gas, and all you want to do is pass the car that's in front of you.
The only plan these drivers have right now is to make sure they don't make a mistake. That's a big, gnarly, massive car, and everybody is trying to find their rhythm.
Right now it is Tony Kanaan up front of Ed Carpenter, Oriol Servia, Marco Andretti, Ryan Briscoe. And farther back, just pick your favorite driver because they are literally wheel to wheel, side by side.
And Remember, this track has changed since you and I ran here, Eddie. They put a higher banking here, up to 20 degrees. And this track is very different because of the dog leg in the front. The drivers are going through turns 3 and 4 right now. And this dog leg in the front, you come up here and basically it's another left-hand turn, and you have to watch who's on the inside of you because you can really squeeze somebody down.
This is one of those places where you have to make sure your spotter and you are working in total tandem. Tony Kanaan's looking really strong.
Look right in the middle of that screen. There's the number 10 of Dario Franchitti as he is continuing to sort of be in the middle of things. And you can see, we'll keep updating you as the points as they run. There's the 12. And Dario's just getting ahead of Will Power now as we look out the back. Things starting to sort out a little bit now.
All those sparks you see, remember, full fuel right now. Tire pressures will build as they run a few laps. Raises the car off the ground. Those sparks will go away. Nothing to be concerned about for the drivers at this time.
Checking in on that battle for fourth right there, Ryan Briscoe, Oriol Servia.
Tell you who's really impressive right now is Ed Carpenter. He's picked up where he was in Kentucky.
On board with Briscoe. The 98 of Alex Tagliani on the high side. So close up there, touching top there.
These are not stock cars. They don't do very well when they rub sides with each other.
But did you listen to that? They touched and they didn't even take their foot off the gas. They just kept on going.
That was Ryan Hunter-Reay on the outside. He made a good move to avoid making that a 3-car pileup as he was on the worst end of that, being on the high side. Nothing's changed up front. Tony Kanaan is still leading, but boy, the action back behind him, he doesn't know what he's missing.
He does know what he's missing. He's glad he's not in the middle of it.
Right now, Franchitti is running. Well, he's just moved up into the 18th position. Will Power has dropped back, guys. He is now running 26th. And there is Will. As that, look who's passed him, the 77 of Dan Wheldon. Points as they run right now, Franchitti's favorite. The challenge for second place getting a little more interesting as Marco Andretti looking to the outside.
And what's really interesting there is that Ed Carpenter probably could pull himself up a little bit closer to Kanaan, but he's not.
Remember, when you get close to the car that's in front of you, that dirty air that comes off that car, Eddie, as you and I know from driving these, really takes the downforce off your car, maybe lightens up the front, and the car won't turn as well as it wants to. We call that understeer, and if the car can work well behind the car that's in front, great. If not, use the tools in the cockpit, the weight jacker and the adjusting bars, maybe make it a little bit better.
Looking for Dan Wheldon. Started 34th in this field. He has moved up 10 spots. You're on board with him. And one thing he was worried about going into this race was all that dirty air created by 34 cars.
But right now, the position he's in, he actually has a small advantage because everybody else has opened the air up in front of him. And he, oh, here we go.
Trouble contact and a huge crash.
Oh.
Up in turn number 2. Oh, multiple cars involved. Oh, my. It looks like Dan Wheldon may be involved in it.
And Eddie, you and I spoke about this morning on the drive-in. Just this amount of cars, the speed, just the chance for what they call the big one.
The conditions like that, when you're even if you're 300 yards behind that, you cannot stop these cars. The only option you have is to try to avoid it, and it was impossible to avoid anything there.
And you saw Will Power, his car involved as well. My. What a mess. That's Townsend Bell that was, I think his car was up on its side there, the 22.
15 there of Jay Howard. An additional entry, excuse me, is that the 19 or 15? I can't see with the sun shining there. Some of the car is broken. They're showing that as Alex Lloyd, the 19.
It is the 15 of Jay Howard.
Yes.
One of the cars actually flew for about 200 yards in the air.
Red flag is out here at Las Vegas Motor Speedway on lap number 12. And from high above, you can see the carnage.
We talk about the car going through the air. Eddie, you know that these cars run so low down to the ground. We mentioned before, we saw them hitting the ground and sparking, that anything underneath the car, underneath the floor, underneath the tub, really just gets the air underneath the car itself, and up it will go.
We saw J.R. Hildebrand out of his car. There is Dario Franchitti. Somehow he managed to get through the carnage, but
Sure, guys, I mean, there's just nothing I can do.
Will Power did not.
10-4. They are going to stop you at pit lane on the right-hand side. They want the drivers to stay in the cars.
What Franchitti was alluding to is there's nothing he can do avoiding the debris that's on the track.
Well, there is debris everywhere. You can see just how many cars are literally torn apart. And this was the one thing, and there is the 18 of James Jakes. Now, he had a crash early in practice on Friday. That is actually a KV Racing backup car that they put together for him. Now, I don't see much damage on there, but he's out of the cockpit. And look at this from high above. And this was the one thing we were fearing when we saw qualifying and the two championship contenders in the middle of the field, a big crash like this early in the race.
What happens in accidents like this is that a single mistake by anybody, which might be dirty air, could be anything, multiplies itself so fast that you start accumulating cars. There's no way that you can control what happens. Once you start spinning at those speeds, it's impossible. It's impossible to solve the problem.
And when we were watching that, Eddie, I'm not sure that anybody made a mistake, because I started to see some sparks. I was wondering if actually there was a suspension failure or a failure on a car, and the sparks I saw, and then all of a sudden people started to collide with each other. So not sure if it was a driver error.
There's Paul Tracy to the right there. We're going to sort this out. We know at least 8 cars are involved, maybe more. So stay with us. We'll go side by side, and it's only lap 13. And we've already had a huge crash here at Las Vegas.
Earlier this year, I visited the 6th floor museum at Dealey Plaza in Dallas, Texas. The most profound of the many artifacts there was a printout of a local station's teletype showing the first reports of President Kennedy's assassination in 1963. The broken words and phrases seemed to capture the fear of the moment. It's almost as if the person transmitting these messages couldn't believe what they were typing. It was hanging on to the last of their composure. Looking at that printout reminds me exactly of those first awful moments after the crash.
That is not a good sign.
But Marty, you're talking about the Hamaltrol safety crew, and these are crews that go on the road here with the drivers and the teams all throughout the races and even to different countries. And 2 trauma physicians are on track here along with 3 paramedics.
And the first time they showed the replay.
Going for the turn. And what ends up happening is that he got stuck back up there, turned around, tried to take another move going down, guys, and the back end started to come around, and that started the chain reaction.
He was uncomfortable being on the top lane, and he tried, like you said, there's the car. Now there's 2 cars that are airborne. This puts Indy racing in perspective. This is the horrible accident that everybody has always hoped would never occur.
And as we said, 15 cars we now know of involved out of the 34 that started this race. We're under a red flag situation. We'll step aside. We'll stay side by side here at Las Vegas.
We're trying to take it to the next level at every step, and Mothers is a partner we trust.
Mothers really helps make our cars stand out. It's genuine, it's authentic, and it's best in class.
We actually use Mothers wheel care products during our production process.
It's so easy to use. Just spray it on and wash off. It's just that simple.
Trusted and used by industry pros at Pirelli Tire North America, SMS Supercars, and HRE Performance Wheels. Mother's full line of wheel cleaners make cleaning any wheel a snap.
Like so many great pioneers before me, guided only by a dream, I'm embarking on a journey of epic proportion. I will travel from sea to shining sea, through amber waves of grain, and I won't stop until I've helped every driver in America save hundreds on car insurance. Well, I'm out in the parking lot. That's a good start.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
Is that thing getting closer? Look how high that thing's going. Look out there. Look at the debris.
Give me the camera.
No, just drive. I've got it.
Zoom in, zoom in.
I can't believe this is happening.
Oh, the size of that thing.
It's everywhere.
Are you getting this?
Yeah, I've got it. What was that?
It's the National Guard.
How'd they get here so fast?
I don't know.
Pull over. Pull over.
Do you have what it takes to head into the heart of the storm? Check out NationalGuard.com.
3 years ago, when I was diagnosed with diabetes, I was afraid I'd never get back in a race car. But now, the chance to race the Indianapolis 500 and the IZOD IndyCar Series is extremely fulfilling. I nearly lost.
A lot of us in the chat were longtime race fans, and when we noticed something during the commercial break, it seemed to confirm our worst fears.
Cars at over 200 miles an hour. And with Novo Nordisk's help, I'm proving to people with diabetes that you can do almost anything you want in life, even drive a race car.
We are under a red flag situation here at what was hoping to be a big celebration of the 2011 IZOD IndyCar Series.
I remember my parents coming up to the room when they heard my brother and I reacting to the crash. My mom couldn't look away from the screen. She ended up bringing up some white yarn and started knitting just to ease her nervousness. She had me hold the yarn taut for her, which wasn't difficult. We hardly moved.
Paul Tracy, E.J. Vizo, Dan Wheldon, and the quest for the $5 million is over. Alex Lloyd, Pippa Mann, Buddy Rice. So that is the list of the cars involved. And there's what's left of Buddy Rice's number 44, Dallara, as other cars on the hook heading back to the garage area. We'll be back after this message from our ABC stations. Under a red flag situation after 12 of 200 laps at the IZOD IndyCar World Championship presented by Sunoco. And you see the 77 of Dan Wheldon's car, what is left of it. Other cars of the 15 involved, as they are all on the hook being taken back into the garage area. One of the guys involved in the crash, Wade Cunningham. Jamie Little, you've caught up with him?
Yes, we're back here at the medical center, and there's a lot of long faces. And Wade, you're the first one that wanted to talk.
The chat room had a tendency to lock up, or maybe it was just my computer. Either way, around this time, I started copying the chat transcript into a Word document. I didn't have a clear plan for it at the time, but it felt like something that should be saved. I then refreshed the browser and asked if anything had changed.
And just hope everybody's okay.
All right, once again, Roger Penske, 2 cars still in the race, but the championship battle for Penske is over.
And there is Will Power's car. And we're going to go on board with Will and give you another perspective of exactly what happened in this 15-car melee.
And Eddie, as we know, when you're driving along at these speeds, you're going the length of a football field in less than a second. So if something happens in front of you, you can never have enough reaction time.
It's impossible. You have no time to do anything. What happens maybe is just a small miscommunication between 2 drivers. Somebody spins and you have 20 cars that arrive on the scene at 220 miles an hour. It's physically impossible to do anything, and things like that tend to multiply themselves.
Well, Vince Welch has caught up with Alex Lloyd. Vince?
Alex, we just saw the replay. Where were you and all of that?
It looks like the first kind of group got together. I kind of checked up, and then looking at that, looks Will's on board. Looked like Will then went, didn't get it checked up, obviously, and went into the back of me and over the top of me. But yeah, it was just chaos. I mean, it just all of a sudden the whole track just gets littered. I mean, just cars everywhere, and as I said, then guys from behind. I mean, it's just mass chaos out there. Unfortunately, it's something I think a lot of us maybe thought might happen. I mean, we've practiced with no more than 5 or 6 cars in a group, and now we've got 34. There was going to be some trouble. I mean, my biggest thoughts right now are just with Dan, Susie, and their family, and just hope everything goes okay from their end.
Good to see you're okay. That's Alex Lloyd. Marty?
And you've heard the references to Dan, and we have not had any word on his condition. As soon as we get word, we, of course, will pass it on. But you can see the concern of everyone as there is Alex's car. Paul Tracy, we saw him out of the car. Jamie, you've caught up with him?
Yes, and he has a long history of racing, even racing at this track. Where were you in the middle of that?
I mean, I saw 2 cars touch each other up in front of me, and then I tried to slow down and couldn't slow down. And then Dan's car, from what I saw from the video, came over my back wheel and over top of me, and it's just a horrendous accident. And a lot of prayers right now for Dan, because it's going to be a long recovery.
What have you guys as drivers back here in the medical center been told about his condition as of now?
We haven't really been told anything. They're scrambling in there right now. There's 20 doctors in there, and we basically have been shuffled out. But, you know, there's a lot of frustration from the drivers. There's a lot of disappointment. There's a lot of young drivers that don't even know how to react. So it's a bad situation.
Thank you for your time. Paul Tracy is okay, Marty.
One of the great things about the IndyCar Series, they travel a set of doctors and medical officials that are specialists in a number of areas, and they are at every race. That's the group of doctors that you heard Paul Tracy refer to that are working on Dan Wheldon and the others. And as we get more information, we'll pass it along. Stay with us.
Hey, Mario. Hey, what do you got in this thing? 16 valve, 2.4 liter engine, 200 horsepower. Air conditioning.
32 valve, 3.5 liter engine, 650 horsepower, air conditioning.
As the cars were towed away and drivers were released from the infield care center, Thomas Scheckter had left the track early, not unlike Jimmy Means at Watkins Glen 20 years earlier.
The helicopter here on site lifted off. We do not know who is inside that helicopter at this moment, so we'll wait for word from IndyCar officials. But think good thoughts, folks. We're going to step aside here at Las Vegas Motor Speedway.
People choose 5-Hour Energy now over 9 million times a week for lots of reasons. It's a nutritional supplement that really works. Its key ingredients are found in everyday food like avocados, broccoli, and bananas, or already in.
ABC interviewed several drivers as they left the infield care center, then even more on pit road. With each interview, it was clear something even worse had happened.
You're just kind of running around in a group, so when something goes wrong, you could be, you know, just a victim, and everybody was a little bit concerned about that, and then we saw we had the proof right now, so the only thing we can do is just, you know, try to drive with our heads, you know, on our shoulder and respect each other out there.
All right, once again, Alex Tagliani sitting by waiting to restart, very concerned about his teammate.
All right, thank you very much, Rick. As we continue this red flag situation, and everyone's thoughts have turned to Dan Wheldon's condition. As you see Chip Ganassi talking it over with Dario Franchitti. He has clinched the championship, but as we said, he is not in a celebratory mood. Nobody is right now, all waiting more word from the hospital. Let's get down to Vince. You've caught up with Ryan Hunter-Reay?
And Ryan Hunter-Reay has a little damage to his car, and he wasn't even in the accident. That's how physical this racing was before the big accident happened. How do you balance the hot competition versus safe racing?
It's a really good question. I mean, we knew coming into this race, racing at speeds of 225 miles an hour, that this would be a tough one to get it done without a big wreck. It only takes one small mistake to create a very big problem like we see here. I really hope Dan Wheldon's okay. I haven't heard anything other than he was airlifted, but so our thoughts are there right now. But yeah, we just, as drivers, we need to get together and we need to go agree to fight this thing out the last 50 laps and try and take care of ourselves as drivers for the good chunk of the race. I mean, that was like it was the last lap for, what do we do, 12 laps now? So it's not really the way you want to do it. And we have a big, like you said, we have a big hole in the side pod right now from Tag and Briscoe. We're going at it.
Around this time, people started sharing more tweets. I wasn't active on Twitter at the time, so this was altogether new to me. Brad Keselowski tweeted, "The fact they haven't restarted the race by now leads me to believe they are investigating the incident. Unfortunately, another bad sign." Ashley Judd sounded more positive. "Thanks everyone for prayers. No update on Dan yet, except unconscious, but vitals are good. Everyone here very scared. Pray for medical team." Another user said his brother told him Justin Wilson's wife said, quote, "Wheldon may have passed. He's waiting on confirmation. Not trying to start the rumor mill, but he's with the team's family."
Mirror's not out of the race. Neither is James Jakes. The others are listed as out. This is the 15 that are involved in the total crash. Here's page 2. It's a long list. Through Townsend Bell, Pippa Mann, Buddy Rice, Thomas Scheckter, E.J. Vizo, Dan Wheldon, Charlie Kimball. And of course, it is Dan Wheldon's condition that we are most worried about at this moment. He was airlifted out of here. We have no further word at this time. We've sent Jamie Little over to University Medical Center so that she can give us direct reports as soon as they become available. Now, the drivers have been summoned to a meeting inside the media center building, which is on the infield portion of the track. Now, we are not privy to be inside and hear what's going on in that meeting, but as soon as something comes out of that meeting, we will, of course, pass it along to you. We'll take a break here at Las Vegas.
By this point, whether or not the race would continue seemed beyond question. What would happen next, however, was anyone's guess.
Happen next, as everyone comes out of this meeting room, there is Tony Kanaan, who started on pole today, led the first 12 laps, and was nowhere near the crash when it happened behind him.
At this time, they've also been repairing the track, Marty, repairing the safer barrier, repairing the track that we saw just a little bit earlier on, and also repairing the catch fence.
Michael Andretti, he was in that meeting as well, as he will make it back to his area. And of course, we are waiting for word from IndyCar officials as to Dan's status and the status of this race.
The wait had been so long already, and yet these final few moments were the worst yet.
The next steps that they have been told by IndyCar officials, and there is Tony, and
very distressed.
And Tony just is a great friend of Dan, and they hang out together, has always hung out together, and when they separated from being on the same team, have remained friends over the years, and just a true friendship. There you see Roger Penske, obviously, and Roger is there with his team, and we're conferring with his guys, and all the information that they know from being involved in that meeting so far, Eddie, we're not privy to that, but obviously they're passing along and discussing what they have learned inside that meeting, and we still hope and pray for Dan Wheldon. As we mentioned before, in that big accident, he was airlifted out of the racetrack here to the hospital, and overall, a lot of drivers involved in that accident, but obviously the worst injuries so far to date seem to be Dan Wheldon, Marty.
Yeah, and Wheldon, as you can see,
Vassar.
Yeah, that's Jimmy Vassar, team owner, co-owner of KV Racing. At the hospital, Jamie Little has passed along that Dan's sister Holly is there. His brothers Austin, Ashley, and Elliot are there. His wife Susie and their two children, Sebastian and Oliver, are there as well. No further information coming from the hospital yet from Jamie Little. As soon as we do get word either there or here, we'll pass it along. And there is the captain, Roger Penske, talking it over with his team.
You know, and Roger has been involved with the sport so many years, Eddie, as you know, and all through the decades that we had when injuries were very strong, not only injuries but deaths. And I think of Mark Donohue, who drove for him and was killed. It's a difficult situation, but we're all in this as a family because we love the sport.
A very big family, and there is absolutely nothing that can prepare you for moments like this.
All right, we are getting word that there's Randy Bernard.
Our thoughts and prayers are with his family today. IndyCar, its drivers and team owners, has decided to end the race. In honor of Dan Wheldon, the drivers have decided to do a 5-lap salute in his honor. It will take place in approximately 10 minutes. Thank you.
There'll be no one-on-one interviews or questions. Thank you.
Did he confirm he's... All right, we came in late on that, and folks, this is the hardest part of our job, and the last time I had to do this was 2006 with Paul Dana, but we have lost Dan Wheldon today here at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. A tragic accident on lap number 13, and Dan Wheldon killed today here at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. There'll be a 5-lap salute. Stay with us, please.
Even at this early stage, there were questions about the future of the sport.
Actually do, and I mean, there's nothing you can do. The drivers are put into positions, nothing they can do. Here it's in slow motion, but you can see how it arrives.
And the parts are going everywhere, and as a driver, you're trying to miss the large pieces, the cars themselves, and parts are falling out of the sky. You really don't know where to go or what to do, and if you escape this and you get through it, you sort of pinch yourself when you're on the far side of it and said, I made it. And unfortunately, some did not.
Last angle on this that we will show you, as
it's very painful to watch.
It is. It's just, it's heart-wrenching. You know these people as competitors, as sometimes they're angry with what you say about them on the air, but trust me, when
there's
these moments, there it is right there, and that's the compact or the impact you were talking about, Scott. Cockpit towards the catch fence. Another view from Danica's car, as she was one of the 19 that managed to make it through.
She's on the lower part of the track, which was a good position to be in, but she has a bird's eye view of everything from here.
And as we heard her say earlier in this telecast, that she thought things were just getting a little bit crazy. She had eased off the throttle, not something that race car drivers do, but she just felt uncomfortable, had something about it, a sixth sense, if you will, and turned around and just gave herself a little bit more breathing space, which is something that worked out very well for her.
Don't ever say race car drivers don't have emotions, that they feel nothing. That's Dario Franchitti.
Probably the last thing he wants to do right now is drive a race car.
This is a tough moment for everybody here, as Dan Wheldon loses his life today in the series finale, as he was going for $5 million if he could have gone from 34th to first.
Then came the 5-lap salute. Until lap 11, this board and its chat room had been a lot of fun. Nothing too serious had ever happened while I was there, but once it did, things couldn't go back to the way they were. I ended up leaving sometime later. I just couldn't reconcile filling both roles anymore. Around 6 o'clock that evening, I recorded my thoughts about the crash, unscripted, unlike the weekly starting grid videos I made at the time. After what felt like minutes standing silently in front of the microphone, I talked about the dangers of the sport, and how the intense racing that day reminded me of the 2001 Daytona 500. I felt weird about posting it, so I didn't until just this year. Instead, I made a brief tribute to Dan and posted it early the next morning. It wasn't until another tragedy, the death of Jason Leffler in 2013, that I felt NASCAR had a clear mission statement beyond mere statistics. That week, I pointed out that the previous Sunday, Leffler was only mentioned on my site, but that wasn't much to point at. My article, too, was entirely too brief. It was time to make the change. The next year, I started covering races under the NASCAR banner. During my most recent coverage at the Las Vegas track, I returned Saturday night to the site where it all began. The plaque, placed by Jamie Little in 2016, was still there, the black plate bleached silver in the harsh Nevada sun. The next day, another serious accident would take place there. Thankfully, Joey Gase would live to race again. The dangers of racing, like the men and women who face it every week, must always be respected. When they aren't, I think back to October 16, 2011, and what it felt like when I glanced up from my monitor to see that first puff of smoke.
Many people ask me why I always sign off till we meet again, because goodbye is always so final. Goodbye, Dan Wheldon.